Hey, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Mark Landon, and I'm the Executive Director of Nature Corps. Over the last 25 years, Nature Corps has recruited thousands of volunteers to work on important conservation projects in Yosemite, Sequoia, Channel Islands, and Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, and more recently here on the Central Coast in the state parks here along our coastline. Today I just wanted to share with you a few of the bumps of the roads in my life that led me to start Nature Corps. I remember as a college student, I had a literal bump in the road. I was helping a friend of mine move up to UC Davis, and we were traveling north on Highway 5, middle of the night, and we hit a torrential rainstorm. And to make matters worse, we found ourselves entangled with truly a maniacal truck driver that deliberately drove us off the road into a ravine that separated the two highways. We were bracing for impact, and all of a sudden, we hit a boulder that literally ricocheted the van out of the ravine back up on the highway. And you know, life is full of those kinds of things. You're just driving along through life and you hit a bump and you find yourself taking on a new direction. Well, fortunately, about 2 weeks later, I hit a very fortuitous bumps in the road, and through some really odd circumstances, I ended up getting a position working for Jacques Cousteau right out of college. So for me, that was a wonderful thing. Anyhow, I worked for Cousteau for about 5 years in various capacities. And then, unfortunately, his son died in a plane crash in Portugal. And they closed down the office in LA, and I went to work as head of fundraising for the American Cancer Society down in Los Angeles. And I worked there for about 5 years, and then on a gorgeous afternoon, I thought, I'm going to go home and enjoy lunch. And when I got home, there was a new issue of Sunset Magazine in the mail. And I started thumbing through the magazine, and there was an article on the President's Commission on American Outdoors that encouraged Americans to serve as stewards of their public lands. And I thought, that's a fantastic idea. And that's what basically inspired me to start Nature Corps. Now, over these many years, our primary objective is to give youth a bump road experience to encourage them to become stewards of our public lands. And to give you an example of that, one of the most fun things I love doing is when we get a bunch of kids up to the national parks. They've never been out of the city, and all of a sudden they're camping under the stars. And on that first night, we tell them, you know what, we're going to go for a nighttime hike, and you can't use your flashlight. And for a kid that's never been in the forest, that's a scary proposition, because what they're thinking about, will I be eaten by a bear tonight? That's their primary concern. So imagine all of these kids huddled together in the dark. We're hiking through the giant forest, and all of a sudden, we come onto this amazing clearing, and on the other side of the meadow is, lit by moonlight, the General Sherman tree sequoia. That tree, by volume, is the largest living thing in the world. And so these kids are they're in awe of its presence. Now just imagine, this tree is 28 stories tall. Okay, it would take about 20 of these auditoriums stacked on top of one another to get to the top. It's absolutely enormous. At its base, the tree is 36 feet in diameter. I barely fit in this room. It's absolutely enormous. But what's really amazing is it has a root system that extends out over a 2-acre site. Now, this footprint of this room is maybe 10% of its root system. Okay, and what's really unusual is that its roots are only about 3 or 4 feet below the surface of the earth. So when you have 1 million people a year traversing around this tree, it is creating serious impact. And it's at that point that we inform the students that they're going to be part of several teams, are going to be installing a protective landscape plan that was designed by Cal Poly. And so after they're all done, and it took several years to implement this, when they were all done, they were invited by the First Lady of California to come up to Sacramento to receive a Take Pride in California award for all their effort to preserve one of our nation's most cherished national treasures. That's the kind of bump in the road experience we offer these students. And interesting enough, we also offer these programs for your employees. Since we started working here on the Central Coast, one of the things that we noticed over the years, which is just amazing to me, is, and those of you who study team building, what's really phenomenal is when you take a group of employees and you ask them to take on a challenging project, they will innately bring to the surface traits that are fantastic for team building. And one of the things that I'm most excited about is recently we teamed up with Michael Gunther for collaborations, and they're going to be using their work trait system to help your employees when they're volunteering, how to identify the very traits that help them to create that esprit de corps and how to translate it back into the workplace. So just imagine, while your employees are learning team building, they're building a company legacy in our state parks that visitors will enjoy for many, many years. And just to wrap it up real briefly, one of the things we're looking for is we need volunteers. We have a number of conservation projects we're working on along the coast. We're also working to restore an old 1930s greenhouse behind Hearst Castle. And it's not all work. We have time to get out and play after they work. There's a tour of the castle. We go kayaking across Morro Bay. We go bicycling, and, of course, wine tasting. And so we encourage you to look us up and get involved. We definitely need the help. And one of the great things is you can use this not only for your employees, but your executive staff. You could use it as a way to reach out to other companies and develop partnerships with them. And the great thing is Nature Corps takes on all the logistical efforts, so there's no burden on your staff to get these things done.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Mark.